Watch out, Blue Bloods. Make way for the New Bloods. DeLuna Coffee adds to their Blue Angels collection with their Fat Albert blend, a classic combination of Guatemalan and Brazilian beans. It is truly their roaster's choice. And hey, check it out. K-Cups of it, along with Voodoo and Red, White, and Brew, are buy one, get one free. So go check it out over at DeLunaCoffee.com.
From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
wake up, wake up. Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
and this is Wake Up Warchant, fueled by DeLuna Coffee
Coffee's for closers only.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hutchavandi.
and Corey Clark.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
Wake up! I feel normal again, I think, Corey. It's Wake Up Warchant. It's fueled by DeLuna Coffee, which is helping me feel like my best version of myself. DeLunaCoffee.com. Explore our world of coffee. Use that promo code WARCHANT15, and you can save 15% on your order at DeLunaCoffee.com. Support small business, y'all. I don't know. It's not Small Business Saturday. I don't know when that is. I think it's the day after Black Friday. Bring it back. Do it again. They're Seminole fans. They're Seminole alums. They're Seminole boosters. The Lemmix family, based out of Pensacola, and their coffee is awesome. I'm telling you, it's just awesome. Almost as awesome as the columns that Corey Clark writes, the insightful news that Ira Schofeld drops, the recruiting insight brought forth by Michael Langston, the entertainment value of Tom Lang and Jeff Cameron and Tom Lang, and then the Godfather watching over all of us, Gene Williams. It's warchant.com. It's the ultimate Seminole sports source. Promo code's warchant30. Use it because National Early Signing Day, Early National Signing Day, whatever we call it, is near. I wish I was nearer to Corey Clark geographically, but I'll just have to take for him being in my ear through the wonders of technology. Corey S. Clark, how are you, man?
I'm good, Aslan. How you doing, buddy? You doing all right?
Good, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. How's that feel in your ear?
Ooh, dulcet,
Pretty good?
Dulcet, I like it. Yeah, nice.
Yeah. You're welcome. Hey, and your listeners, you're all welcome too. You like that? Little Corey Clark kind of low key, like by a fire.
NPR, it's like NPR Corey Clark.
Yeah, sweaty balls. Let's the Christmas sweaty balls.
Oh, man. All right, so we're going to get to the rest of these questions that we have left at the bottom of the mail.
Is that a reference that you got? Did you get that reference?
I'm sure it's like an SNL skit or something, maybe.
Yes, yeah. With Alec Baldwin, actually, who's been in the news for not great reasons, but yes, it's I'm not going to even go into it. It's an SNL skit from like the late '90s where they were doing an NPR type cooking show, and it was all about the guy's meatballs that he made, but he named them after his last name, and the hilarity ensues.
I gotcha. A couple things from yesterday's show. I've been sniping with this guy N Parker 52682, which I should look up. That's 52682. That's 5 digits. That could be a zip code, but it's not a zip code. So sorry, I totally goofed on that one. But he doesn't think the offensive line's any good. Even though I brought forth data to N Parker, I'm like, hey man, Robert Scott graded out just as good as Oregon's tackles and Oklahoma State's tackles, and they're playing in New Year's Six Bowls. So anyhow, he says we're looking for 2 transfer tackles and a center. Wow, really? No love for Maurice? Darius can swing to center. Maybe Schrader can do a little center. Being adequate was based off of Jordan Travis's running ability and health, as there was 0 depth. For that matter, we were looking at a combination of high school and transfers in the neighborhood of 35 players. That's 40% of the roster you're turning over. You don't do that if you feel good about the roster. The good news is the transfers do allow for a quicker turnaround of a roster that has many positions that are simply not adequate. Offensive line, wide receiver, tight end, linebacker.
Yeah, I would say going into next year, Gibbons obviously has earned himself a spot. He's got a starting spot. It'll be interesting at center. Like I do think Maurice Smith has something to him, but he wasn't very good the last month of the season. Now that could be injury. He's also not huge, and I feel like all those freshmen, they've got to get substantially stronger and bigger. I think when you're thrown into being a college offensive lineman like that starts as a freshman, that can sometimes curb your development because, it's hard, man. You're 18 going up against 22-year-olds, and they're beating the crap out of you. And it can be hard on your body. It can be hard to get stronger. You can lose confidence. There's all these things that hopefully won't be the case. And these guys, these learning, the learning curve, the bumps that they've gotten will only make them, they'll become calloused, and then they'll become really good in a couple of years. But you never know how that's going to turn out. I would say this, though. I don't know that you're in the portal for a center. I think they like Maurice Smith, but even if they do get 2 tackles, then I feel like they're moving Darius Washington to center.
Yeah.
So I don't think you're going to be. I mean, if the kid from Iowa wants to come, absolutely, you're going to make room. Sorry, guys, but other than that, I think that I think that they're looking at definitely 2 or 3 linemen, and I don't even know if it's like we got to get 2 tackles, you got to get 2 guards, go get two or 3 really good guys that can help immediately.
Yeah, and again, I thought I said it yesterday. I'm not saying stand pat. By all means, every position bring in better players. That's whether you're Florida State or Alabama. I just happen to think that when we're looking and doing an autopsy on this offense this past season, I don't really – listen, the offensive line obviously bears the brunt of some of the foibles and the shortfalls of the offense. But, again, they're not nearly as hopeless as everyone kind of thinks they are. Obviously, they can get better. Obviously
Yes.
that. But I still – again, if you were a Boston College fan, that afternoon in Chestnut Hill, you probably wanted to fire everybody and
Sure.
open the portal for all those guys. If you watch, I know LSU beat A&M, but Max Johnson he lost a few years off of his life that night. I think one guy had 4 sacks, 3.5 sacks. I mean, that kind of stuff we really weren't seeing. And I know that's a low bar, what I just dropped on there. But again, listen, we always think grass is greener. It is a little bit, but it's also a lot worse.
I mean, there's no doubt that it's a good enough offensive line to be 7 or 8 wins. I mean, they were close to getting 7 or 8 wins this year. If Jordan Travis plays the whole season, they probably win 7 or 8 games. So it's good enough for that, but it's nowhere close to elite. And, eventually you're trying to get to elite. But it was adequate. It certainly wasn't an embarrassment, which we've seen what that looks like at Florida State. Just absolute squalor. Just nothing redeeming about anything up front. It wasn't that. They had some moments. They had some, 5 out of 6 games they rushed for over 200 yards. One of those was with not Jordan Travis. They had some moments. They would give them time to throw occasionally. But, yeah, Clemson beat them up. Florida beat them up, especially in pass downs. But again, Clemson does that to a lot of teams. But, they got to get better. There's no doubt about that. I was thinking about that, Aslan, before we get to do we have any more questions?
Well, Mucknell, who is notorious for just, once a month just trying to hurt my feelings with the way he replies to our show, comes at you, Corey.
Oh, no.
Good Lord, Coracle, can't even do a good internet search. Come on, man. I reside in Charlotte. Here is the rest of the story regarding the UNC Charlotte's 49er mascot. I clicked on the link. Thanks, Mucknell. A miner was chosen as a UNC Charlotte mascot as a nod to Reed Gold Mine in nearby Concord, the site of the first documented gold find in the United States in 1799, or Concord. I don't know how you want to pronounce it. He was named Norm through popular student vote shortly after he was made mascot. Norm is rarely seen without his trusty pickaxe and never takes his slouch hat off. Thanks, Mucknell.
I don't know what's going on with the show. I feel like we've dedicated way too much time to the UNC Charlotte 49ers. I mean, I don't know if they have a Wake Up Charlotte, Wake Up 49ers podcast, but I doubt they're talking about Florida State's origins on that show. I think we've done enough. I think we've given the fans enough of history and backstory of that school. Okay. I thought that was pretty informational.
It was thorough what you went with. We didn't even talk about the mask. I was just thinking about why they're named that. We didn't go with the whole entire.
Right. It's good to know there's a mine in Charlotte, though.
Yeah, Concord. Let's go back 1799. Maybe it's churning back through the black sands, the black soil. All right. Did you want to add something else, Corey, before we get?
Yeah, I was going to say. So I saw this on a post on the message boards, and we talked about it last year. But somebody asked if transfer portal counted in recruiting rankings, and they don't. I do think that that's something that has to change immediately. And then I started thinking, okay, if you went back to this last class that they just signed in the transfer portal, what so you signed 1 5-star, and would you say 3 4-stars with Kier Gibbons and Jamie Robinson?
That's fair. Yeah.
I think you got a 5-star in Jermaine and then 3 4-stars out of 9, right? Or 10. McKenzie, I don't know what you'd give McKenzie. And obviously this is hindsight. So he's a 2-star. Bam Moore is nothing. Andrew Parchment, I don't know, a 2-star.
Yeah, I guess they'd give him 3. Come on, 4th and 14, man. That's good enough for 3
That's
stars.
right. 5-star, man. 5-star. But yeah, I mean, overall, 2 or 3-star. McClellan, 2-star. Who else? Is there anybody else out there? There has to be, but it's not coming to mind right now. But so I think you had 10 transfers. Oh, Cushney.
Sorry. Yeah, that should have been me.
2-star. maybe 1 star. But when you look at the overall, you got 10 guys, and out of those 10 guys, you got a 5-star and 3 4-stars. That's a pretty good hit rate, right?
Yeah.
So do it again.
That played like that. I mean, you can get 4-star high school kids, but they might play like 2 stars.
Well, they're not going to be 4-star. They're not going to have a 4-star impact right away.
Right.
This is something that I do think needs to change. So now go back to what Florida State signed last year, their recruiting class, which I don't know where it finished, 27th, 29th. Add a 5-star and 3 4-stars to it. All of a sudden, not too bad, right? Not too shabby. Now, you have to do a little calculus there and say, okay, you only got them for a year. So the impact is not as much as it'd be if you signed a 5-star like Marvin Jones Jr. that could be good for 2 or 3 years. But yeah, I think that's something that definitely has to come into play moving forward as far as how you evaluate classes. Because, man, they're going to bring in 30 kids. And a third of them are going to be transfers. That should matter. And it should be you should rank classes accordingly. Because Jermaine Johnson, if he'd have just been a recruit that came in, he would have been one of the most impactful high school, first-year players in the country. And he didn't even get counted on any ranking for coming into Florida State. So I think Rivals and 247 and any other Newt networks that are out there
on 3
will hopefully, you would think, start accounting for transfer portal and maybe even have their own rankings in that regard. Add them to the recruiting rankings and then have it all told, like after February, these are the best classes with transfers included.
Yeah, they finished 31st last season, Florida State. So
throw a 5-star and 3 4-stars in there, and you're probably in the top 25, top 20 maybe.
It's Friday, y'all, which means we're one day closer to Championship Saturday and NFL Sunday. And if you want to put some money down, first know what's going on. Tune in to Friday's Lightning Picks on BetQL Daily, presented by FanDuel. BetQL Daily is the must-listen show for sports bettors and sports fans alike. Hosts Joe Ostrowski, Joe Giglio, and Aaron Hawksworth, referred to as the Joes and Aaron. They serve up that wagertainment. It's sports talk you love with betting insights you need each weekday. If you are not sure where to start with sports betting, start with BetQL Daily. It's presented by FanDuel. Listen weekdays, 9 a.m. to noon Eastern on Odyssey, which, remember, it's like Audacity, but not the I, not the T. Or you can listen anytime on Spotify or your favorite podcast app. Let's get to it. Bradley Moss, 22. Look up. I would give the 2021 season a C+. There were some pretty low points in all 3 phases, mainly special teams. But the team did show improvement as the year went on, and they are no doubt better than they were last year. I do feel that 2022 is a show-me year, but it's really hard to say right now given the uncertainty of the roster. Speaking of, Ira Henry has entered the portal. Jalen Goss a few days prior, so that's part of the cost of doing business.
So Jalen Goss is in the transfer portal?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I don't, and I'm not taking a shot at the kid.
I think grad transfer. Yeah.
But does he want to play college football as an offensive lineman?
Yeah, maybe he can find, FCS, do drop down or something. Yeah, I mean, come on.
I mean, I'm not saying that. It's just like you can't be that size, and they don't look like you, man. They offensive linemen don't look like you. So maybe he could go try a different position or go to a much smaller school where like 275 or 280 can play on the outside. But it's odd that like I hope he gets a good chance. I hope he gets to play and has a nice season. It's just when you look like that as an offensive lineman, and by the way, he's in incredible shape, but he's not in the shape of like an offensive. There aren't guys at big schools that look like that. It didn't seem like he really wanted to take part in big time college football.
Well, hey man, he's got one more year. If somebody wants to let him get free grad school, go for it.
Absolutely, man. I hope he has a good year somewhere.
Piggybacking on the quarterback conversation, it's so hard to have a quality backup these days. All kids want to be the starter, and if they don't feel like they have a shot to win the job, then why would they want to come here? And if they lose the job, why would they stay? If I recall, the quarterback who transferred from Baylor went to Utah, was a starter until he got benched a few weeks into the season, then he just bounced. Charlie Brewer. I like that kid. I liked him at least before he quit Utah after 3 games. The best situation seems that there has to be at least a 2 or 3 year gap between guys so that they can take over once the upperclassman leaves. Example, Bryce Young for Mac Jones, DJ Uiagalelei for Trevor Lawrence, Caleb Williams for Spencer Rattler. Although, I don't know. There's about 2-year difference, right? Because Rattler he's draft eligible.
Yeah.
It seems like we have to roll with the current quarterbacks we have and A.J. Duffy as an early enrollee. I wouldn't take a portal quarterback unless they know someone like Rodemaker plans to transfer. Thoughts? Hoping for some good recruiting news in the next few weeks. If we close strong, we might just get another champagne shower from Corey. Thanks, fellas, and as always, go Noles.
Yeah, man, they close strong on signing day. Who knows what I'll be dumping on my head.
When are you going to bring champagne back out? Like national title or winning ACC championship to get into the playoff? Or
that's
never
a good
again?
one. Yeah, I think the bar has to be a little higher than just maybe I just do it for every time they get their first win.
They just beat the Duquesne Dukes.
Let's get crazy, folks, and just dump it all over me and spray iron. And this time I'll wait till the camera's on, till I pop it.
Yes, please.
We'll figure that out. I think I probably have to save it for a special occasion. I would assume if they beat LSU in New Orleans,
oh boy,
I'm going to be dumping something on my head.
Yes.
Outside the Superdome.
Yeah. No, I mean, obviously, this is one of many questions that we've kind of kicked around this week, but you got to take some. I mean, I can't imagine why you would say no. I mean, if
you wouldn't say no to anyone,
right?
I don't think anyone that has a heartbeat, that has shown they can play in college football, I don't think you say no to. But then again, who's coming to you wanting to play for you? Now, I know we can go on the boards, and if you go on the boards and you read links and stuff, there's a couple pretty highly touted quarterbacks, including one from Ohio State, that there might be mutual interest there.
Jack Miller.
What a name that is, by the way.
Strong.
Look, if he wants to come to Florida State, you say, yeah, man, absolutely. Come on, let's see what you got. Let's see if you can beat out Jordan, but come on. There's a spot for you if you're good enough. You're not going to turn people away. But yes, that it is hard now to develop depth at quarterback. It just is. It's Alabama and Clemson. Look at the two ones that were mentioned. Just the two best programs of the last decade. Who else is waiting around? Like those are like there's maybe 5 programs where you wait around and wait your turn. They don't do it at Ohio State. Burrow left. This kid left. So it's just more common than it isn't. They all want to go play. So that's why you kind of throw some bodies at the problem. You recruit, you make sure you have 3 or 4 on roster, make sure one can play, and then know that there are going to be Chubba Purdy's out there that bounce in the middle of a season because they don't see themselves playing more and more. They don't see themselves getting a chance to play. So, but you got to have depth. You got to have something, in my opinion. You just have to have something more than Duffy and Rodemaker as a backup to Jordan Travis next year. You've got to have something a little more proven than that, in my opinion. Absolutely. But how do you get it? It's easier said than done.
Amstaff Noel, gents, our special teams is clearly, special. In 2012, we had 3 total touchdowns via punt and kick return. Any guess as to how many we have had since?
Well, Kermit had the one, right?
Yeah. I'll save you the trouble, he says. In the 9 seasons since, we've had 3. 3! Kermit, Bobo in 16, which I don't even remember. When did Bobo
I'm sure it was probably an FCS school that he did it against.
And then DJ Matthews against Miami in 18.
Oh, there you go. That's right. Yeah. I'm actually interested in Bobo. I bet that was an FCS school. So, since the Kermit game, they've had 1, essentially.
Yeah. My question is, how agile and fast is Aslan? He's got a slim build, decent height, might be a problem for the Dukes to start the year, or are we better off with Corey and his world-famous straight-line 40 time?
I feel like what's your fast twitch? You're pretty twitchy, I think.
I don't have I don't have the speed you have, though, but I'm slippery. I can get away from that first wave, but they'll probably catch me after 15, 20 yards. They won't.
Not like me. If you give me a step, that's a wrap.
Gone.
Yeah. I do remember, and I'm not fast. This isn't a brag, but back maybe, it's 15 years ago at this point. My face looked the same, and my hair actually looked worse because I had hair, but I was balding. But I was like 32, and we were in a flag football league. and I was quarterback sometimes, which is crazy. That tells you the athletes we were playing with, that I was the quarterback. But then we had a really good athlete that actually a friend that's a good athlete that was quarterback, and I was the receiver. And there was one game where I caught like 2 or 3 deep passes in one game, a couple of them for touchdowns. And my buddy, who's the quarterback, after one of the touchdowns that I caught, the guy that was rushing the quarterback, my friend, who was trying to pull the flag before he threw the ball, he's like, "Man, how are we giving up touchdowns to guys who look like that?"
Oh,
but it was funny because that's who I am, Aslan. I'm not gonna impress you with my stature, my posture, my face, my body necessarily. But I could be sneaky fast. I'm sneaky athletic. But those days are gone. I'm 46. I don't think I could break 5 seconds in the 40 now. I hope I could break 6.
Flex your brain for us. You did some research the other night about punts, right? The amount of punt
about
return
special
yards.
teams.
Yeah,
and I think I'm going to write a story on it. Maybe it'll be on the site when you're listening to this, but it'll be up there at some point. So yeah, I did. It was a lot of research. It was probably too much digging, but I went back and looked at all the punts that Florida State tried to field this year. They had, and this was easy. The easy part was they had 72 yards. They had 72 punt return yards all season. 35 of those came on one play against Jacksonville State by Keyshawn. Other than that, of the other 61 punts they fielded, they managed 35 total yards of returns, which is insanity. A lot of fair catches, but more than anything, they gave up 151 yards in rolls, in bounces. I did the math. I went back and looked. I went through the play-by-play of each box score, and any time it said 52-yard punt to the – because usually it'll say 41-yard punt, fair catch by Travis J. 49-yard punt, fair catch by Ontario Wilson. If it ever said 47-yard punt to the FSU 5, I was like, okay, well, nobody caught that one. So I would note the time, and I would go on YouTube and find that clip.
Oh my
and then
God.
I would look where the ball bounced, and I would look
guy.
where it rolled. And it was 152 yards of rolls they gave up by not going and catching the ball. And a couple of them, I forgot there was one in Louisville that rolled from the 23 to the 2. Obviously the Clemson one we all remember, a couple of those. It's just like that's 150 yards is a lot.
I know, but that's like 13 yards a game. I mean, is that the end of the world?
Well, no, but it's some of those there. It's probably there were only like 6 games where it really impacted. But when you're talking about starting to drive at the 4 as opposed to the 21, I mean, and that happened multiple times. It changes it just changes everything. And not only that, what if you have a returner that actually wants to go catch it and run? So instead of getting it at the 21, you get it at your own 33 as opposed to the 4. Like some of those are imminently catchable, and they just let them drop for returnable. I mean, and they're all catchable, but they ended up letting them drop and roll. So, but like, how crazy is that you gave up twice as many roll yards as you had in return yards? Like you gave up 151 bounce yards and had 72 return yards in a full season with, not terrible athletes to choose from. So anyway, it's not like the coaches don't know this. But now there's a number on it. There's an effect. You can see like how many times Florida State, they gave up 28 punts of over 50 yards. How many of them actually traveled over 50 yards? Probably 10 of them. The other ones rolled that way. But anyway, that's my point is that, that's, if you could just be average at returning punts, just go catch everything and cut off the rolls. Think about starting to drive at the 24 instead of the 9 and how much difference that can make.
So you're not asking for Greg Reed or Willie Reed?
Actually, yes.
Or, I mean,
for heaven's sake.
We would, but if we just had, I don't know, Rashad back there just catching them somewhat sure-handedly.
Who's a good example is Kenny Shaw, because Rashad had a few drops. Kenny Shaw that year in 13, I don't know if he had a return longer than 15 yards. It didn't matter. He caught everything. He caught everything. Sure-handed. I don't even think he bobbled one. And they were punting a lot that year in 13. They were forcing a lot of punts. So, just somebody like that, man, would be good. But you don't have to just give up and say, we just need somebody that will catch it. You can actually make it a weapon. But I was texting Ira about it. What's crazy to me is like so little, they very rarely ever rush the punter. And Mastromano sometimes will hit those 12-yard or those 30-yard like stingers, like Tiger Wood line drives down the middle of the fairway. A lot of that would be because he felt a rush. Yeah. And he had to kick it. But when you give these punters in this conference, it's the best punters in the world apparently come to the ACC. When you give these guys time where they know they don't have to rush a kick and they can roll out a little bit and take their time and let their coverage get down there further and further, like they take an extra second and a half, which is another 15 yards closer that those gunners are. Man, it's hard. It is hard to return those things. And you're gonna have people around them when you catch it. So I wish occasionally. Like I was telling Ira, I don't remember them even coming close to a punt after the Notre Dame game, where they should have been called for roughing, but they called running into the punter. After that game, I don't remember them coming close to blocking a punt. I'm sure there was one that I'm not thinking of, but more often than not, and especially when I was watching all these punts last night, they just sit back and don't rush at all. They might sneak one guy in there or try to, and so the punter has all the time in the world, and I think that's something that almost needs to change as much as maybe who the returners are.
Everybody's trying to cash in on the next best cryptocurrency, but if you want a guaranteed way to double your money, all you need to do is use the promo code WARCHANT at MyBookie. It's simple. Sign up at MyBookie with promo code WARCHANT, and your first deposit is immediately doubled all the way up to $1,000. How's that for a quick turnaround on your investment, everybody, right? We like that. With the NFL playoff race heating up, college bowl season just around the corner, shoot, it is championship Saturday this week, ladies and gentlemen. Double your firepower at MyBookie to get action in on the most important games of the season. You can build your own props, create multi-game parlays, and take part in a host of MyBookie cash prize contests. This is the best time of the year to both watch and bet on sports. Again, we've seen all these games. We've seen these teams. We know who they are. They are who we thought they were. Don't miss out. Double your first deposit. Use that promo code WARCHANT. Keep your eyes peeled for more exclusive holiday promotions at mybookie.ag. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. Real quick, Corey. Georgia 6.5.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I mean, I want to take Georgia. I think they can win by multiple scores, but man, Alabama getting 6.5 points. When's that happen? Does that happen in a decade? 15 years was the last time that happened, probably. Maybe against Florida in one of the early SEC championship games. Yeah, I wouldn't touch it.
Drill Sergeant Porter, wake up. Been a while since I posted on here. You're right. I forgot about you almost, DSP. Crestview? Where'd you end up settling at? Let us know. I forgot. Hope it's going great. You live by the water now. Must be amazing. I think you relocated from Ohio? Midwest? Anywho, hope all is well, he says. Likewise. A big concern of mine, other than our offense being unable to move the ball consistently against anyone, which sidebar, no, it's just going to go too long. Does anybody, people punt, people go 2 drives and they don't get first downs, everybody. It happens. I know our defense was a lot better this year, but how much do you attribute that to the transfers? And is it really sustainable without that same type of portal commitments? Yeah. Also, do you think Spencer Rattler would be a good addition? Again, thank you for all that you do, and as always, go Noles. Yeah, man, I think Spencer Rattler's got to be a little bit humbled, and that's good insurance at the worst. And if he beats Jordan Travis, then you have a mighty fine quarterback. And, yeah, you do need those sort of bell cows, dogs, if you will, up front. However, though, Corey, we like Amarian Cooper, Kevin Noles. Some of us like Jarvis Brownlee more than others. So is it possible that maybe the back end could be a little bit better? And if they don't have that same sort of ferocious 1-2 punch coming off the edge, they still might be okay as long as it's still fairly disruptive?
I mean, okay. I don't see them taking another unless they hit the portal like they did this past year and get some real help up front. I don't see them taking another step up. You know what I mean?
Right. Like
they're not going to go from whatever they were 37th in defensive efficiency to 9th if they don't get some beast up front. They can still be adequate, which is what they were this year. I mean, they weren't great. Every game they gave up, close to 30 points. But they were certainly adequate. I would say even at the end you'd say decent. I might even throw decent in there.
Ooh, yeah.
What a superlative. But yeah, if they don't, a lot of it had to do with 11-4, but not all of it now. Like Lovett was better. I thought Jared Jackson had moments. Malcolm Ray McClendon. These were guys that you hope are coming back, that had moments, showed that they were good players, especially Lovett. But those other guys, the younger guys, had moments. And then you look at somebody like Deloach, and even Lundy to an extent, Gaynor to an extent. Those guys got better as the season went on, and so did the secondary. You know, you have some mismatches sometimes in the secondary. But overall, I thought I don't think it's sustainable to keep going, climbing if you don't get great defensive linemen. You can't be a great defense if you're not great up front. You can't even be a good defense if you're not great up front, really. So they have to go figure that out. They have to go find some guys. They're not going to probably find another Jermaine Johnson, but maybe you get 2 or 3 guys that can still really play, and then you got a chance to sustain it, which is what the question was, right? If it's sustainable. It is sustainable, but right now you're in the transfer mode. You can't stockpile talent and then let them sit for a year or two, and then you're going to be like Alabama, where you've got, here's 3 more first-round picks that we've got just waiting in the wings. That's not where Florida State is right now. So it's sustainable if you can go get some guys in the portal.
What about Spencer Rattler? Would he be a good addition?
Yeah, I mean, you certainly, I don't think you turn him away. You got to do some due diligence on stuff like that. Like that was, you can't ask, like, especially if you're recruiting his teammates, which you apparently are. Some guys, the whole Oklahoma team is in the portal, apparently, or thinking about getting there. So, especially they haven't named a coach yet. Venables, what are you waiting on?
Seriously,
Brent,
come on.
Baby, what are you waiting to? You're not in the ACC championship game. Did Dabo tell you that? It's Wake and Pitt, buddy. I don't know if you're game planning for Pickett again, but you're not in the game. So what are you waiting on? So, yeah, I would think you would talk, especially if you're in communication with those other Oklahoma transfers. That's where you figure out if you want Spencer Rattler, because I think they would tell you the truth. I think they'd be like, yeah, man, he's actually a good guy. Or, oh, absolutely no, I don't. If you get him, I'm not playing with you.
Wow.
I'm not going there.
Wow.
No, I'm not saying that's what could.
No,
but what
I'm
if
sorry,
what if you're recruiting?
Yeah,
what if you're recruiting that 5-star wide receiver, and he says, if you take Rattler, I'm not coming. The guys, I just couldn't stand them. I'm not saying that's happening, but what if he did say that? Wouldn't that give you a red flag about that quarterback?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what you're trying to build necessarily? That, like, maybe you don't take a guy who's, did you ever see Draft Day, Aslan?
I have not. No, sorry.
Oh, well, then never mind. There's people out there that have.
They have.
The number one quarterback that everybody thinks Kevin Costner is going to take. The reason he doesn't take him is because his head scout tells him he was quarterback at Wisconsin. Sam Elliott was his coach, which is crazy casting. Sam Elliott is a football coach in the Big Ten. Anyway, Kevin Costner has a talk with Sam Elliott, and because he's heard from his scout that his Heisman-winning quarterback, when he had his 21st birthday party,
nobody came
none of
to
his
it,
teammates,
right? I saw
none
that
of his
part.
teammates showed up.
Yeah.
So that gave him the red flag, and then he went and took the linebacker from Ohio State. I think that was Chadwick Boseman, R.I.P.
Yeah,
Chadwick Boseman was in a lot of sports movies and was good in them too. He's a great actor. I really do miss that guy. But anyway, so if the quarterback is not beloved, if they don't like him, then I do think that might come into play. You just got to do your due diligence, man, because you don't want somebody to wreck, especially at that position, because it's so important. You don't want somebody to wreck what you're building. But also, he might be an immense talent, and you don't just shoo away immense talents because they rub people the wrong way. That's why Norvell gets paid, right? Got to do your due diligence.
Yeah.
So to answer the question, I don't know.
It's funny that we're talking about that and greatness and dealing with it. Antonio Brown suspended for 3 games for misrepresenting his vaccination status, which whatever. How about this, though? This is why I interrupted you in the middle of your previous answer, Corey. Bronco Mendenhall has announced he's stepping down at Virginia.
What?
Yeah.
Huh. That's weird. He didn't say he was going anywhere?
No.
Well, go look at their recruits. Go see who you can steal.
That quarterback,
That's
I think
crazy.
that quarterback's
Weren't
on
they
pro, though, I think, unfortunately. Brennan Armstrong, that kid can play. That kid can play football.
Yeah. Weren't they pretty good this year?
Yeah, they were
Or
bad.
average?
Yeah, I think they're
6-6, maybe. They're a bowl team. Yeah. That's odd, man. That's wow. Also, did you see who else was suspended for 3 games within the Bucs organization?
Mike Evans.
For doing the same thing Antonio Brown did?
Mike Evans.
No, it wasn't Mike Evans. No, it was somebody else, but it wasn't Mike Evans. But John Franklin III.
No kidding, really?
Yeah, how about that? How about my man John Franklin? I didn't know he was still even in football.
I didn't either, and I was thinking about that the other day. That team had that guy running scout team quarterback. I wish you could see the way the scout team quarterback looks in 2021, everybody. It's amazing.
Look, there's a difference. We all get it. There's a difference. But, hey, John Franklin is still – I think he was on the practice squad, but he has been suspended 3 games by the NFL.
And I'm sorry, it says Mike Edwards have each been suspended.
There you go.
Sorry, Mike Evans, I apologize. I just saw the Mike and the E and, that trick.
You did the rest.
Yeah, apologize. He'll join the class action with Ted Cruz and Jim McElwain on Warchant. So we got to bow up, right. Corey. We got to bow up. All right, 2 more. Old Dads and Noel, wake up, guys. No questions, just comments. Okay, so we only have 1 more, apparently. I just want to thank you two for keeping a bummer of a season interesting. It has been a weekly pleasure hearing all the interaction between you guys and the Warchant faithful. This is the one reason I just renewed my subscription. Well worth it to me.
There you go.
Awesome.
There you go. Nice.
Appreciate that, old dad. That's awesome, man. My only comment, for real, my only comment on the game is I listened to it traveling, so the interpretation is different than watching it. But I will say I never felt FSU had a chance to win the game, only hang around. Very disappointing end to the season. Maybe next year. Cheers to the best 2 in the business, old dad. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
I heard the first drive, so in case no one knows or don't follow me on Twitter, I left at a reasonable time. My mom's house is about 2 hours away from Gainesville, and the game started at noon, and I left at like 8:30. I'm like, I'm going to get there at 10:30. We'll say 11 with traffic. I can walk into the stadium. I don't have to do anything before the game. I don't have the eagle eye of Ira Schofel. And Austin and Corey are there. I'm like, so I'll be fine. And I hit like an hour and 15 minutes of traffic on I-75. No accidents, thankfully. Nobody hurt, but just absurd congestion out of nowhere. And it just cleared up. It was so bizarre. So I heard the first drive as I was parking, and it was frustrating. I don't know how people, I mean, when you need to know what's going on in the game, radio is better than nothing. And I remember in 13 or 14 rather, I'd be covering these games in Mississippi, and I'd have like this Jimmy rigged setup to where I'd be streaming a game on my phone and listening to it in one ear while I'm filming a game. And like listening to the first half of the 2014 NC State game took at least, 3 years off my life.
Yeah.
But it was just like, and you're hearing Mick Huber or whatever their play-by-play guys in Gainesville, just like, Emory Jones swings it out wide, and that's to the 30 to 35, 40. And next play was like he swings it out wide and 40, 45, 50. It sounded like every play they made on the first drive was a swing pass, like a screen pass, like nothing all that aggressive. And then before you know it, they scored a touchdown. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So that's my story on that. But yeah, that is pretty accurate, right? Actually, I don't know. I didn't really get to the stadium until the second quarter started. When Jordan left the game, that might have thrown everybody for a loop. But was there a point in that game where you really thought like Florida State was doing anything more than just really hanging around? Like it never felt like, oh, here's their moment. They just landed a big shot. Watch out, here comes the Noles.
No, I thought when when Brownlee intercepted it in the end zone with whatever that was, 30. Look, when Jordan Travis went out of the game with his shoulder hanging limp, I'm like, oh yeah, they're going to lose by 40 points, especially when we saw what came in after him. But once he came back, he led a touchdown drive, and then Florida went down the field, picking up third down after third down, but then Brownlee undercut that route and intercepted it in the end zone. And then you actually moved into field goal range right before half, and you're like, man, maybe they can sneak away a field goal here, and it's 10-7, and you're getting the ball to start the second half. So at that point, yeah, I did think they were going to win the game. When I thought they weren't going to win the game was that first drive of the second half. You get the ball at the 35 because he kicks it out of bounds. You don't pick up a third down because you don't. That's just not what you do. And then you punt the ball. You basically have a 5-yard net punt. You punt the ball, line drive. They return it to the 50, and then you get called for or the 45. You get called for a personal foul targeting, and then they have the ball at the 40. You punted the ball from the 35. If you were on the other end receiving the punt, you'd start your drive at the 8. But instead, they're starting it at your 40 when you punted it from your 35. That's when I'm like, yeah, this might not work out. Plus, they when they brought in Anthony Richardson, I was like, yeah, that's probably not good for Florida State. Even then, though, I still thought they were going to win the game really until the sequence, and then that followed up when Pokey dropped the punt. And then I was like, man, you're already down 10-7. You just gave them the ball at your 30 or whatever it was. If they go and march down and score here, you're probably going to lose, and that's what happened. But I didn't think like they were never going to win. I thought like, midway through the second to midway through the third, I thought they were going to win the game, and then that did not happen.
Yeah, they were just like stuck in gear. It was like, all right, like turn it on, please, and like they really never did.
Yeah,
but it was crazy, old dads and Noel, because Emory Jones throws an interception on their last play of the first half, and Brownlee thankfully gets tackled in the end zone. He tried to bring it out.
He was trying to come out. He was trying to get to like the one.
I know.
Man.
But then they stuck with Emory Jones in the third quarter, and I think like on second down he throws an incompletion, and they instantly start booing him. I mean, there was not even a flinch. It was incomplete, and then
But it wasn't just an incompletion. It hit DJ Lundy in the numbers.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like DJ had his back to the receiver, so I mean you could make that throw. The guy's not looking. There's no real risk there. But the throw was so bad it might either hit him in the helmet or it hit him in the back. And that's when he came out of the game.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't the end of that drive. He came out on second down. He was out of the game.
They booed him, and then instantly Anthony Richardson trots in on third down, and they just instantly go from booing to cheering, and then I think he converted a first down, and the rest is history.
Oh, and you know what? Okay, so this is when I knew they were going to lose, I think, is the 3rd and 22.
21,
right?
I thought. 3rd and 21.
Yeah, well, whatever. Would it have mattered? 3rd and 29, they would have gotten 33. But that play, because Jermaine Johnson just got in you're like, oh, Pokey, come on, man, really again?
Right.
But then you held up. You forced a 3rd and 22.
Yeah.
A 3rd and 21, sorry.
Jermaine sacked them and was being held. It was amazing.
So they throw a 12-yard pass on 3rd and 21, and they get the first down. That's a killer.
Last question, and it is about the Florida game. Seminole Mike 1. Good morning, evening, gentlemen. Seems our short-staffed Noles new bloods ran into a Purdue buzzsaw on Tuesday night. Looking forward to seeing how Ham's team develops and improves over the season. Did the ACC win any games in the ACC Big Ten Challenge?
Yeah, they won NC State won a 4 overtime game over Nebraska.
Oh, all right, let's go.
North Carolina beat the pants off of Michigan.
Okay, sorry.
I think they won like 5 or 6, maybe 4 or 5, 5, 6, something like that.
What a roller coaster of a season. Like many, I want to feel positive about the direction of the team. However, there is one thing that bothers me about the Florida game. Florida was down a significant number of key coaches, which means that all of their formations and schemes were likely holdovers and nothing new that wasn't on film. My question is, should our coaching staff have been able to better take advantage of that situation? Thanks, boys. Go Noles. You would certainly think so, Mike. You would have certainly thought so if you hosted a podcast and talked about this game for 5 days after all this happens. It's incredible. It really is. Again, in the grand scheme of things, it's an inconsequential mark on the record if this thing ends up being really good. If it doesn't, maybe you look back and say, well, that was a bad sign. But at any point, when you lose to an interim coach, when you have a lot to play for, and, I mean, you're certainly well-positioned, it's a bummer. And, again, to that team, I guess it would have been worse if he would have done that in Doak. I guess it's the only thing that could have made it worse. But I don't subscribe to the fact that listen, man, I get it. They hung with Alabama. Those players exist. They were on that same field Saturday against Florida State a week ago. But man, things change. Listen, we saw Florida State look terrible week 2 against Jacksonville State, and by the end of November, Florida State could have hung on the field with probably 125 of the 130 FBS teams out there. Teams change. That team, everything was pointing down. Everything was pointing down. And the amount of turnovers they gave you. And listen, you earned them, and you couldn't capitalize on any of it. It's a bummer. It is, man. I don't know what it means for the long term, but it's.
Yeah, and I don't either. Look, man, I'm certainly not going to sit here and say that Dillingham is an offensive genius, but I'm not going to say that he can't do it either. We don't have enough evidence yet. Next year is a really important year for him. But when you look at that game, it's like, they had a nice drive going, and then Jordan Travis had to come off the field. And they bring in Milton, who immediately basically gives up the drive by dropping a snap. Like that, that's the kind of stuff that's like, what if that doesn't happen? What if Travis stays in the game and doesn't miss 2.5 series? Like, they basically, every time Florida gave them a chance with a terrible turnover, they couldn't take advantage because they just don't have anybody after Jordan Travis. Which, again, you could blame the coaches for that. Like, why wouldn't Rodemaker be ready to go in if Travis? Clearly, Mackenzie Milton wasn't. Why wouldn't Rodemaker be a better option this, 2 seasons into his career? How much more could they have developed him or anything like? I don't know. I just think that it's fair to criticize the way the offense looked in that game, but you have to take into account that you missed basically 3 really important drives were sabotaged because you just had no chance with those other guys. You just didn't. And you had the ball 5 times in the first half. I think maybe 6 times. I think 5 times. 6 times. So the first drive, Jordan Travis gets hurt on a 3rd down where he just gets blindside sacked. Not a great possession there. He misses. He comes back in for the next drive, gets him to the 50 for a first down at like the 48 of Florida, and then hurts himself on it. Has to leave the field again. You lose 16 yards on a good snap that's not handled. That drive's over. Milton gets the ball back, rolls out, throws a terrible interception. That drive's over. You put Rodemaker in the game, you get an OPI. That drive's over. Then Travis comes in, leads you down the field for a touchdown, gets the ball with 30 seconds left, and almost leads you down for a field goal. So when he was on the field, the offense was fine. But so I guess the point is, it's not like they were confused or bewildered by what Florida did, or they didn't have a plan for it. In that instance, and I'm not all about like blaming the players, like, you got to get better players. You don't just throw up your hands and say, well, what can I do? I know better. These are who I got. You learn to do things with them. And they did. They had moments there on offense. Not enough, but they had enough good moments on offense that you can see what they're trying to build. But it's hard to really blame the coaches when your quarterback gets hurt and is out for 3 drives. And in the second half, he took a terrible sack there on that first drive where they ended up having to punt. And they punted it down to the 1. You think, okay, we're getting a good, we had the interception where he's just taking a shot. But, I didn't think I didn't think they were like not well prepared or they didn't have a plan for Florida. Like I said, I questioned why they didn't run more. I think they gave up on that too quick. I don't understand why you would go so empty so much when you can't block it up well. But, yeah, I thought that, when Jordan Travis was in the game, they moved the ball just like they've moved it all year. They're not good enough to really they're not good enough right now to take advantage of not well-coached football teams.
Well, that's part of it, too, though. Florida seemed to get a little bit more up for that game, which is a little bit disappointing.
I don't know. I don't know that that's true, right? I thought Florida State was in on it. I thought they were into it, right? And it wasn't like Florida did I don't know that they did something. They had these great coaching moments where they just out-coached Florida State.
That's the thing. It's the guys on the field, man. You got to motivate those guys. You got to make them exert and strain. Well, Florida State didn't play soft in that game. Florida played harder. I just think so. We can disagree on it.
Yeah. I don't know.
Go ahead.
Maybe
everything's fine. We're going to win 10 games next year. We're all good.
I don't think you'd look at Florida State any game they played this year and be like, man, they just didn't play as hard as the other team. I think they always played as hard as the other team. Sometimes they just don't play smart or play well, and they don't catch punts. You know what Florida did? They caught all their punts. Week 13.
God love them. Figure these things out. Busy weekend, everybody. Busy weekend. The women's volleyball team, they're in the second round of the NCAA tournament. They take on Kansas State later on Friday, 5:30 p.m. Shout out to them. The women's soccer team, 7 p.m., taking on Rutgers in the College Cup. They win that game.
Come get some, Rutgers. Come and get some. You already knocked off one Big Ten powerhouse last weekend. Now you got the heart of the Big Ten.
That's right.
The preeminent school of the Big Ten, Rutgers, to chance for the championship, to get to the championship game.
And the men's basketball team starts ACC play Saturday, 4 o'clock in Tallahassee against Cuse. Syracuse.
And also, we know what you guys care about the most, and we know you're big fans of basketball and soccer, and you always want teams to win and win championships. But going to be some recruits on campus this week.
No.
Football recruiting, we know it's the lifeblood of everything. It's the lifeblood of the program. It's the lifeblood of Warchant. So go to Warchant and get all the updates you want, because Michael Langston and Austin will be hammered all week with updates, transfer portal and otherwise. And also, you can go to the, Aslan? You can go to the Seminole Headlines podcast page, and I assume your chat with Langston from Thursday night will be on that.
Yeah.
So you can go listen to that in its entirety.
Thanks for reminding me. Forgot about
you
that.
can go listen to it in its entirety if you want to get up to date on all the happenings and recruiting in the portal. And man, that's all the next 2 weeks is about, right? You just get some. Really, the next 2 months. Get some players, man. You got a chance to bring 32 guys on this roster. You can really overhaul this thing with some legitimate NFL talent. Go get some.
Well, hopefully there's legitimate NFL talent out there. Shout out to Robert Cooper. He announced as we wrapped up the show here that he's coming back. Year 5, ain't much to be said. Just keep improving. So
there you go.
You got an anchor. Maybe Fabian Lovett comes back. That would be nice. I'd be surprised if he did come back. But, hey, you got one piece coming back. Go find some others and keep developing the guys that you brought in this past year. So, and of course, point again, keep it with warchant.com as these recruits arrive on campus and see if they want to join the climb. Thanks for joining us today. He's Corey. I'm Aslan. Thank you so much again for listening to Wake Up Warchant, fueled by DeLuna Coffee. Come explore our world of coffee. DeLuna Coffee features over 24 different blends. DeLuna's unique roasts can be delivered ground finely for drip coffee makers, coarse for the craft crowd, untouched as a whole bean, or even in convenient K-Cups. Founded in 2014 by the Lemmix family, Ed and Brett are FSU alums and boosters who are extending a special offer to all listeners. Use the promo code WARCHANT15 for a 15% discount. Visit DeLunaCoffee.com and check out their Facebook and Instagram.